Welcome to the Business with Beers podcast. This is the place where we help entrepreneurs expand their business, build their wealth, and generate passive income. I'm your host, Brian Beers, an entrepreneur who's on a mission to inspire growth from everyone around me. Remember that you need to take the actions others won't, and you can live the life that others don't. Please be sure to check out my weekly newsletter that now drops every Thursday. It includes one quote, one tweet, one podcast recommendation, plus some business and investing insight from me. It's short and it's sweet. My goal is to provide you with just a couple gold nuggets to help inspire your growth. Go to brianbeers.com to subscribe. Hey everyone, I'm excited to bring back Dan Claps. He's the CEO of Franchise Playbook and Voda Cleaning and Restoration Franchise. Welcome back, Dan.
Hey, Brian. Good to see you. How have you been?
Yeah, doing great as always. It's just November, getting cold here in Philly. It's nice. So, but anyway, all good. So let's give us an update. So you were on the podcast. I mean, you've been this like the third time actually. One pre-Voda when you just launched Voda, and now almost what was it, 7 months ago. So kind of give us an update. How's it going with the brand? How many territories have you sold? Like what states you're in? Let's start with that.
Yeah, absolutely. And, appreciate you having me on. As you know, I'm a listener of the show. So it's, I love the fact that I get to join you a third time. So thank you for that. It's been going really well. At the time we're recording this, it's the first of the month of November, which is exciting. 2 months left in the our goals for the year, so I'm excited. Voda's, since we last talked, we're at 22 territories. We'll be at 30 actually in the next week or two. We're just finishing up a few people, and our goal was always to be at 50 by January 1st. So we're actually on pace for that, which is exciting. Okay,
awesome. So this is the first brand that you've launched now from being the franchisor. I know you've been in franchising for, 10 years, probably I think you're almost all of like your adult career, but first time kind of out on the franchisor side. So I guess I'd like to learn from you a little bit, kind of as the perspective of a new franchise, or like, what are give us some of like the behind the scenes. So like, let's start with like, I don't know, what's like the biggest, what's something you wish you knew, or you had no idea it was going to be like something that's completely different than what you thought it was going to be like, now that you're on, the franchisor side from being on, the other side of the table.
Yeah. Well, the first thing I'll tell you is, I put in, a lot of money into Voda, $1 million, plus dollars, and then didn't take any money out, nor had any, for a year. And so it's another million something. And so it cost me more than I thought it would. To do it the right way. I'm glad that I did, because now we're able to handle the growth we're seeing from a support standpoint. We have 9 people on the support team for 14 franchise owners, which is unheard of, and we'll continue to, scale up or staff up. I will tell you this, and I think your listeners will appreciate this. There's lots of things I didn't know, and I'm glad I didn't know, because running Voda and doing what I'm doing is the best decision I ever made. I'm having the most fun I've ever had. And it's a great experience. It is the hardest I have ever worked. I knew it would be hard. I'm glad I didn't know some of the things that are challenging, because I would have never done it. And just like maybe, having kids, like you have all the things you didn't know were hard, but it's worth it, right? Yep. If someone maybe told you ahead of time, maybe you wouldn't have kids. I look at it like that. And so I can talk about the things I didn't know, but I would say I'm glad I didn't know before making the plunge into doing what I'm doing.
Yep. Yeah, that's awesome. And that's like, so I think I've heard that too before, in terms of the money, like these things to do it right cost way more money than what you think they are. And that some of these brands that try to launch with like, 50 grand in the bank or something, like they don't have the payroll to support the growth. And then like, now the franchisees are suffering, not having as good of experience. And then it's hard to like get more people into the system if like nobody's happy, right? Because you can't support them. And then it becomes this like spiral. So, where are you spending more money than I guess you thought like you would?
People, we're, and this is not for a franchise owner. I want to be clear, as a franchisor, is where we're so people heavy, but every couple milestones I can see needs for people, and I don't like hiring them when we need them. And so I try to be 2 months ahead at all times, which every time we've hired someone, some negative voice will say, what are you doing? You don't need that person. but I know we will in a very short period of time that no one else can see, but I feel like myself and Zach. And so it's tough. You have to basically hedge knowing where you're going to be in 2 to 3 months and hire ahead of time, which the entire year I've been doing this with Franchise Playbook, the company that owns Voda, people have said to me, you're crazy. You don't need this. You don't need that. And candidly, I've been right every time that we did need them just a few months later.
What's the team look like today? Like, what are the positions that you have? And I guess A, and then B, what do you see in 2, 3, 4 months as more positions that you're to add?
Yeah, what's interesting is the org chart for Voda on the executive level was carved out way ahead of time, and we're exactly doing what we plan to do many, many months ahead. Again, if you own a business, there's a great idea that you build an org chart, not with people, but with roles, and then you build the people in. I started Franchise Playbook with this vision of hiring the brightest minds in franchising, which I feel like we've done in different disciplines. With Voda, we're taking the same mindset, which is, hire the brightest minds in restoration. And so the biggest learning lesson that I had with Voda was that if I could lean into salespeople on the corporate level to help franchisees get business, that's the biggest thing I learned. So let me give you an example of what I mean. I've always thought I'm going to award territory and then help my franchisees get customers. What we've decided makes more sense is let's obsess over getting customers, so much so in every market that we need franchise owners. And so what we're doing on the corporate level is we're bringing in more and more restoration professionals who have books of business across the country, and they're helping. It's never going to replace local selling. Franchisees still need to build relationships, but it's a great supplement to help drive revenue in their business.
So at a national level, you're bringing in people who work for you, who have national relationships or maybe specific demographic areas, and then saying, all right, we know we've got a ton of business now in Ohio or whatever. Let's go find a franchisee in Ohio, something like that.
Yeah. So, basically the genesis of where this came from was, our franchise owners in Dallas, Texas that are open and operating started getting a ton of work from our vice president of operations. And I realized that, that's corporate providing work, right? I spend a lot of money to pay that, teammate, right? We took the risk. We're paying them a salary before there's revenue on that location. He's taking all his relationships and funneling them in the Texas and other markets as well. And so what I call it is we inherited relationships, right, through our teammate. Our franchise owners in Dallas started to say, you know what? Let me hire this project manager who's been in restoration 15 years on the franchise level because I'm going to inherit his relationships. And so what we're doing now is we're taking this mindset of let's inherit as many relationships at Voda corporate for our franchise owners to benefit from. That's on a regional level, just for clarity. And then our future vision is to expand to national. But right now I'm focused on the regions where we have a lot of franchise owners. Yep.
Awesome. And I mean, what you spoke to earlier too about forward investing, hiring people before you necessarily need them. I mean, that applies to every business owner, right? I mean, I'm doing the same thing. We do that in our stores where it's like, all right, we don't necessarily have the business for that like fourth or fifth or sixth technician or like assistant manager or third person, at the counter as we call it. But, we see that, hey, the volume is there, like we're heading to a busy season, whatever it is. And we're going to make this investment. We're going to bring this person on, and we are betting that like, there's demand out there that we can capture. And so, we do the same thing. I think every good business owner does that. And you have like a growth mindset to it, right? You believe that the market is bigger and that, you will get a good return on that investment. And other people who have like a fixed mindset or like a scarcity mindset believe like, oh, that money that I'm letting go for payroll, like I'm never gonna get that back. Like that is a cost where like, people like me and you, and I think the best business owners think it as like, this is an investment in this person that I'm going to get a return on. And that, it might not happen day one, but like over the course of 3 months, 6 months, a year, multiple years, like I'm going to make a ton of money by bringing on this person, at the time that I put them on. So.
Well, you and I share what I consider like a long time horizon, the ability to see further out. Like if you think about it, at the very core, a person that is, maybe making the least amount of money, or they are, is someone whose job gets paid daily, right? Think of a job where you get paid daily. They can only, and I'm not putting them down, but they can only think about today and this week, right? And they get paid daily, not even weekly, right? Here's your wage for the day, cash, etc. Then you've got people that are paid weekly. You've got bi-weekly. The further up you move in your corporate career, you start to think more about bonuses, yearly, quarterly, even further up, equity, right? And the further up you go, if you think about it, for me as a CEO, if most of my comp is tied to money today, I'm not making decisions for tomorrow, right? So like I said, I don't want to keep saying I don't take a paycheck. Someday I plan to soon take some paychecks, but I'm comped myself on long-term success as is my executive team. And so you have that same mindset. And I think that, I'll give you an example. When I sold my business, I remember my dad saying, like, what are you going to buy? And I kid you not one thing other than one nice vacation, because I finally didn't have any employees calling me, to go on real vacation. I didn't change my life at all. And I remember saying to my dad, like, no, this isn't money. This is capital. This isn't even my money. This is going to transfer from my personal checking to my new business account. And that's exactly what I did. And I think that especially for some of your listeners that are in the kind of stage of our life, maybe mid 30s, early 40s, and, growth mindset, especially in that stage of career, early 50s, put it in, because 3-4 years from now, you're going to see the dividends.
Yep. Yeah. And everything we do now is more long-term. I've got a long-term vision us for developing with the painting business. Like, our vision is like, we're not going to take any money out for probably 2 years. Like, just because we want to say, hey, we're going to take all the money we make and we're just going to reinvest it back into marketing, back into buying more territories, back into hiring better people, because we know or believe that will accelerate our growth. So instead of us getting to our goals in 5 years, maybe we can shorten that to 3 years, and maybe we can shorten that to 2 years, right? Like, so I've got like even that. It's a multi-year plan for me personally, from like a distribution standpoint, right? But it is going to be making money, and we're going to reinvest it into growing it, which is by far the best investment that we can make to get, it's multiples of income, right? Like, you invest in the stock market, you invest in these things, it's like, 10%, 20%. And if I, some syndications I do or whatever, I've bought in shops that I've gotten an 800% return on the money I've invested. Like, I put $50,000 down, we made $400,000 that year. And then we made another $400,000 the next year, including paying debt service and all these other things. And, I view this as the same thing. We're going to put, I don't know, more than $500,000 into this thing. And I hope it can make us, millions. And so that's we're talking in terms of multiples, which is the amazing thing about owning a business, and especially in a franchise. Like, you got this playbook and you can accelerate it. But you got to have that long-term mindset and desire. And obviously we're, luckily both in a position that we don't need income right away. Obviously depending on where someone's at, they got to play the game a little differently, but it's the same mindset though, right? Of taking the minimum you would need and then continue to reinvest to grow the business. So.
Yeah. I mean, but what's it saying? If you can't give away 10% of $100, you won't be able to give away $10,000 out of or $100,000 out of $1 million, right? Like, you have to learn how to do it. What I would say is people get into business and then they quickly start, when they do start making money, which can happen, in a lot of businesses quickly, they quickly adjust their lifestyle. It's called lifestyle inflation, right? And I think, as I've gotten to know you and knowing, kind of your different business ventures, I think you share that same, listen, I'm not saying don't enjoy life. Life is short. The more money you make, you should get to benefit from it. But overall, I found the people I look up to, and I have friends that are worth, $100 million. They didn't change too much. They're still spending the weekends with their kids, going to sporting events. They're not buying, crazy things. They're staying calm. Yep. And that's what I found is when I was younger, I started making a lot of money. Maybe I didn't have that, but the more mature I get, it's like, stay calm. When it's good, stay calm. When it's bad, stay calm. Because, business is going to go up and down no matter what. It's just the level of how up and down it's going to go as you progress. Yeah.
One of the things I think is funny, maybe I get your comment on this, and I think it's funny how certain brands talk about, like,
how many hours you're going to work in a business. Oh, like you can do this thing and only work 5 to 10 hours a week or 15 to 20 or I don't know. So it's usually in this like investor semi-absentee. I think it's just kind of funny because like I haven't been an employee since high school, right? I mean, I guess, I don't know, 7-8 years. I've always kind of been an owner. I've had my own little businesses and that, I've been in this thing for, over a decade now. And I've never actually counted my hours, right? I just like, whatever it takes, I'm going to do. And I just think it's kind of funny that, I don't know, maybe it's just that's how they kind of correlate it to people. But I don't know, for me, if like you're buying a business and like you want this thing to be the vehicle that builds you all this wealth, freedom, purpose, like all the reasons you're buying it, wouldn't you do like whatever it needed, and wouldn't the hours not matter? I don't know. You have a take on that, or how do you guys like, how do you think about that whole like idea of, I don't know, like it's like there's this defined amount of time that you're going to like work in the business?
Well, set a stopwatch for me for 2 minutes, because I don't want to. I could talk for 20 minutes on this, but what I can say is this: one, there's not many things in my life that I have concrete like decisions on. I always tell people I live in lots of decisions in questions of what I believe in. For example, non-competes. I've lived in the question of how I feel about non-competes for 6 months now. I see different perspectives, and I haven't decided my decision on that. And that's not relevant to what we're saying. But I went into Voda thinking this needs to be their full-time thing. And then I realized that majority of people that have amassed a certain amount of wealth, they want to buy a business that they can be involved, but not in the day-to-day. And so we've done everything we can to create a more semi-absentee managed manager model. I also realized, after you asked me what I learned, if I were to tell you, or if someone frankly were to tell me, I can't buy the business and run it without being in the day-to-day or semi-absentee, I would tell you, no, thank you, I'm moving on. Who are you to tell me if I can run, like I can run Voda without being in the day-to-day like I ran my last business, because that's a skill set of mine, getting out of the org chart. And I like to get into one position, do it, and then move up. And so my point is that, like, as I've talked to people with more wealth, we've realized, like, look, if you're going to run this semi-absentee, that's okay. There's 2 pieces of criteria. Number 1, semi-absentee doesn't mean this is an ATM business. It could still be 40 hours a week, but you're just not doing day-to-day, just like you do with your
Yep.
stores. Number 2, I am not the determinant of how many hours you have to work in your business. You are. I've set up systems with my team with lead gen, call center, marketing, bookkeeping, operations, talent, finding employees, success coaches. We've got everything. But at the end of the day, if you and I both owned an Orange Theory and you gave your GM equity, you met with them once a week, you went to the gym. I used to go to the gym with my previous GM. We had a great friendship, and he would take a bullet for me. I also got out of the way. I gave him opportunity to earn. I mean, I can go through a whole list. If you did all those things, and I had a GM at my Orange Theory who I micromanaged, I disempowered, I didn't, compliment, all the other things, and I end up working 25 hours a week or 80 hours a week, and you're working 4, well, is that Orange Theory or is that me? Or you?
Yep.
And so, my belief is, like, first of all, it's so dependent on where you're at, how much capital you have. Like, I have people that come to us, they don't have capital, they want one territory, they haven't run a business, they want to buy a business, make more money than they made before, and run it out. And it's like, listen, let's walk before you run. You don't need to buy this business and double your income. How about you just replace your income or work for yourself and build an asset? Then I have other people in a different stage of their career where they've proven that they can run a business without being in the day-to-day, and they've got a lot of capital. It's a different question. So what I tell people is, it really is so dependent. And then I also, truth is, what are you doing? Like, if you're buying your first business, right? And like, I know, listen, I see you on social media. I assume you got plenty of time with your family and your kids, and you got a great family. But there's so many hours in the day. You got 7 a.m. till 4. What are you doing? So my thing is, like, if you're going to buy a business and you worked your butt off for somebody else for 20 years, why don't you do the same for 18 months? And then look up, and guess what? You will be on the golf course hanging out with your business owner friends. But let's walk before we run.
Yep.
That was 4 minutes.
That was great. No, that's a great point too. And a lot of it, I think, is the quality of the time and the quality of the conversations you're having with with the person, running the day-to-day, right? Like the weekly pulse, you've got very clear goals, very clear accountability, you get right to it, right? Or is it, just do whatever you want? Like there's no accountability, there's no clear scorecard, there's no cadence, different results. And that's like, that's honestly that's like the best part about buying a franchise though, right? Is that we're in the people business. And if you're good at like leading people and holding them accountable and setting the goals and creating the vision, like you can create a ton of value, out of the same thing that someone else may suffer and not make anything because they're not bringing that value. So like success is totally dependent on your ability to go out and make it happen every day. Like that's what I love about it, because I can go out and do that, right? And that's a skill that you can learn and you can get better at, versus you get into the real estate business or you get into something even fast, the fast food business. Like success is highly dependent on the location that you pick and the traffic that goes by that thing every day, right? And like you can't change the location. And I know, we looked into like Little Caesars years ago, and a store was successful or not based on its location. So you picked a bad location, you spend $300,000 to build this thing out, and you could be the best operator in the world, and it will fail if parking's not good at 5 o'clock, if the egress or regress isn't what you thought it was going to be, if the major tenant leaves, like all these things that are beyond your control, was determined if you'd be successful or not. Like to me, that's a lot scarier than like a people business, painting, restoration, power washing, like whatever, where you can go out and you just like make it happen. Like I could wake up tomorrow and I could make it happen. And it's based on people and process, not, an address or traffic count or these other factors that are just like beyond your control. So.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. Like look at, in your painting business, like any home service business, let's just use home services, for example. At the end of the day, they all need the same thing. You need a general manager, like in the day-to-day. You need some type of administrative person. Maybe that's you or someone else, but like forget about who it is. You need a GM, you need an admin, you need technicians, you need local selling, right? Again, franchisors, if they didn't need local selling, they would open corporate stores, right? I know like, I'm a big fan of the brand you're part of and the CEO. Like I know there's regional salespeople there too, right? That still doesn't replace local selling, right?
Oh yeah.
So again, that could be you as the owner, as that little name on the org chart, or I'm assuming for you, you're probably going to put salespeople. Maybe you already have salespeople from your other business. Like I got a franchisee in Dallas. He has 80 employees and 40 trucks, and then he bought Voda, and he was able to take a loyal teammate and bring him over as the GM. I'm sure there's some equity agreement that they have. I don't think he's going out and cleaning floors, the owner, right? But, someone has to do all those functions. So GM, admin, sales, customer success, someone to answer the phones like a call center. A lot of franchisors, obviously delegate that. But so when people say, is it semi-absentee? Well, let me ask you, do you have this, and this? Are you willing to give up some equity or some vesting scale and do some bonus structures? And do you have capital? Because again, last thing I'll say is when you go into a franchise, you have three things. You either have lots of money. If you don't have lots of money, that's fine, but you can sell. If you don't have money and you can't sell, that's tough. Like, if you can sell and you don't have money, you can bootstrap. If you don't have money and you can't sell, that's tough. If you have money and you can't sell, you can pay. But if you don't have money and you can't sell, it's probably not for you, a business, to be honest with you, right? Like it's got to be one.
Yeah, or you're gonna go and learn one of those skill sets. Like, well, learn how to sell or learn how to get better at relationship-based businesses, right?
I mean, sorry, go ahead.
No, but it's like, and I guess it depends on the type of selling too. Like in some of these, you're going out and you're selling yourself, right? You're selling the service, even in Voda, right? They're going out, they're to these insurance guys, right? There's not like a job that needs to be cleaned up, but they need to sell the fact that you are reliable, you will show up, you will do a good job, you'll treat that house like it's your own. They need to trust that if they're going to send their client to you, that you're going to treat them well and they're going to be proud and thank them for the referral, right? Isn't that the sale, like in the restoration, or is it more than that?
Well, what I'm saying is, and I'm keeping it kind of broad in home services in general, really any business, is like, believe it or not, man, I'm not as much of a salesperson as I probably come on. I like being behind the scenes. and more than people
You're a
realize.
pretty good sales guy, Dan. Don't kid yourself here. But yeah.
No, I know, but I'm saying that like my time's best spent like leading my company, and then I do talk to
visionary
franchise owners.
Yep.
Yeah, I say to Dragon, the founder of Voda, all the time, you're not an ops guy, you're not a sales guy, you're an entrepreneur. It's right in the middle. I'm not good at either one. I'm kind of in the middle. Maybe same for you. But what I tell people is, I don't care if you bring in a technician and you have to sell them on your vision to work at Voda versus another competitor. So everything comes, managing is selling. I do think home services, and this is my opinion, I don't know, it's not a fact, but when we have people come and look at Voda, we call them a persona we like is the mayor of the town. When I was growing up, maybe the same for you, my baseball games, there was a guy had a contracting business, and his company was in the back of all of our jerseys. Like he knew how to move and shake. And my point is, if you're not going to do that, then someone on your team has to be the person to do that.
Yep. No, that's good. That's a good point. And I think for a lot of people, they can learn the skills if they want to. It's just a matter of identifying where could you be better, and you learn it, or you find a partner maybe who like has those skill sets, right? And it's about matching, the things that you're good at.
If Voda and Franchise Playbook didn't have Zach Nolte, our COO and co-founder, we would go off a track. Like, honestly, my job is to make the train go faster. His job is to make sure it stays on the tracks and doesn't go, if we were on the way to Penn Station, I would end up taking it to Oklahoma, right? So, but I can make it go faster. Yep. And so if you're someone who can, grow a business, you just got to find the complementary partner or employee.
Yes, that's a good segue into my next question. I mean, we were talking about Liz before, but talk about kind of, I don't know, maybe your kind of that philosophy, right? Building the teams, finding like what is your skill set and focusing on those things. And then maybe the lifestyle kind of changes. Maybe you can speak to your experience that you've kind of incurred since kind of launching this business.
Yeah, you mean for me personally?
You personally, lifestyle. Yeah, just like you, because I mean, a lot of things that you've gone through in launching this business, I think is similar to what a lot of people experience when they're launching their business and they're going all in on something, right?
Yeah, I mean, what's cool about owning a business, is it's the ultimate self-development program. Mark Cuban says it best. It's the best sport. It never ends. It's 24/7. I got somebody right now who wants to take my lunch and be the next Voda, or, we're aggressively growing in the franchise space. There's another home service brand that wants to knock me off that momentum. There's large restoration companies that probably don't want me to try to take market share. And so I'm in a competitive sport of growing a business that's 24/7. My previous business, while successful and made me, good money, was the minor leagues. I'm now playing in the major leagues. And so what's cool, and at least for me, is I always remind myself that everyone's replaceable, including myself, even though it's my own business. If the business grew to a point that I couldn't handle being the CEO, handle it meaning, skill-wise and, temperament, etc., then I would have to be fired by me or someone on my team or the company or whatever. Franchisees would say he's out, right? And that's what's cool about being a franchisor, is you've got these franchisees pushing you. And so for me, remember you talked about hiring ahead. We talked about hiring ahead of the time.
Yep.
I can see where Voda is going to be in a year. The Dan Claps today can't handle that business. And I mean that in a humble way. Yeah. And so I have to read and change my sleep patterns and be healthier. We were talking about that before we started recording. I have to learn how to listen better, right? And so for me to get to where I need to be in a year to run Voda, I have to keep improving. And that's the coolest part about what we do, because, money comes and goes, but like growing in your business, I think, is an amazing thing. So that's what I'm going through. What I see with our franchise owners is, I think the coolest thing is watching people go through that and like the roller coaster, and then all of a sudden they're at the top of the mountain and they're successful. So, seeing my franchise owners go through the emotions of starting Voda gets me excited.
Yep. Yeah, that's awesome. There's do you know who Ben Hardy is? Author.
No.
So Benjamin Hardy and Dan Benjamin, so it's kind of confusing, but Benjamin Hardy have written a bunch of books together. Dan Benjamin is the founder of Strategic Coach, which is like the largest coaching program in America. Been around for like more than we've been alive. And Ben Hardy is this doctor in psychology and like how people think. And so basically they've teamed up and they've written a bunch of books on like entrepreneurs and then tying it back to these entrepreneur ideas and then psychology. So really good books. He's got a whole bunch, they've got a whole suite of them. But some of the concepts that they talk about in these books are kind of about being your future self, and this idea that like, who do you want to be in 5 years, right? And then you kind of think, well, how would like Brian or how would Dan in 5 years in whatever, 2028 Brian, how would he react to this situation? How would he look at it? And it's this idea of like, you want to start being your future self today. Like you want to think, how would 5 year Brian or Dan that runs a 300 unit nationwide, whatever multi-million dollar company, what would he do in this situation? And like, so I've kind of start that now. I kind of think it's one of the things I think about every day is like, be my future self is like kind of like a mantra. And that, the things even I used to do where I'd be maybe, short to make a decision or something comes up and I'm just like immediately you make a decision. And then later, you kind of like regret the decision. You're like, maybe I should have like not, I don't know, snapped at that person, or maybe I shouldn't have like wrote that angry email and I should have just like taken a deep breath or whatever it is. Right. So that's been really good for me. And I think, it's basically what you were describing, which is like, I'm not the person, I know I'm not the person I got to be to run this size of a company, but like, I know that. And thus I'm going to do the work to become the future self. And I'm going to accelerate that. Right. So instead of 2020-30 Dan Claps, I'm going to become 2020-30 Dan Claps in, November of 2024. Right. Because you see it and then you seek whatever you need, right? Coaching, like you say, hey, maybe I need to hire an executive coach or this guy who's been there. Maybe I need to invest in whatever, the CEO or the CFO or whatever, or these positions that maybe you're wearing hats for that you're not quite, that you need to get off your plate and have people smarter than you surround yourself. So anyhow, I can text you a bunch of the books, but Ben Hardy, Dan Benjamin, there's a whole bunch of, I've read every single one of them multiple times. They're all great. So any thoughts on that?
I'd like to. No, I'd like to read that. For clarity, anyone if you listen to this podcast and you are interested in Voda, I'm ready to run Voda now. I mean, a year from now. You can trust us for knowing what to do. We've been in. No, I it's funny, like, you and I being friends, like we text each other books and, like give you an example, to people listening, like, you texted me, we can end on this. I think this is so cool about being friends with other business owners on the same level or striving for the same level of success. You texted me a couple of weeks ago and you said, hey, when you post on LinkedIn, you should consider, breaking up the text. And it was a whole thing around how to do better posts. And then I think you shared like a week. And for me, like, I never take any of that like personally. It's why would I be offended if someone's trying to help me? You don't have to do that. It doesn't help you to help me. You're doing it as a friend. And so I took that, but then I saw a week later you posted something like, you were doing it wrong and someone else told you to fix it. And it was kind of interesting how that came full circle.
Yeah, the guy was like, yeah, your content's great, but like all your grammar mistakes make it like impossible to read. It was, and then he was like, here, use this thing called Grammarly, which is this like plugin. And so I bought Grammarly and then I reran it like right then through that newsletter I wrote, and it found like all these mistakes and it, it underlines them and shit. And you're like, oh my God, like I totally missed it. Then the app points it out and you're like, I'm an idiot, but it was pretty funny. Yeah, that's great.
You know what? I'm gonna download that right now so that I stop doing
Grammarly. But awesome, cool. I appreciate you coming on, Dan, and like excited to see you grow. And I think that's like kind of the coolest part, especially working with you and guys kind of in our similar circles here, which is you're constantly looking to get better too. Even in today's conversation is all about like, how do you get better as a franchisor? I mean, you're talking to your franchisees as like, how do they get better to be business owners? And I think, transparency around, hey, we're all looking to improve. We all want to help each other. We all want to build big businesses, and acknowledging where we're at today and where we want to go versus somebody who's like, I've been doing this forever and I can't improve. I already know what to do. And this is what you should do. And I don't know. I think it's really cool, and it's cool to see, you know, the development of people and businesses. And I think that's the age of that's the future. So anyhow, I know you got to run. So where can people connect if they want to talk to you or learn more about Voda?
Yeah, thanks for having me on. If you want to connect on LinkedIn, I'm super active. Just Daniel Claps Voda, you'll see me right away. You know, we didn't talk much about Voda, but there's other podcast episodes that Brian and I have done. So if you want to learn about our business, there's some great content on this podcast series, or just go to www.myvodafranchise.com. VODA. So myvodafranchise.com.
Awesome. And we'll link that in the show notes, and we'll also link our other episodes too. So cool. All right, Dan, I'll be talking.
That's all we got for this episode with the Business with Beers podcast. One thing that would really help both us and other new potential listeners is to rate the show and leave a comment in iTunes, Stitcher, wherever you listen. Also, make sure to link up with me on your preferred social media platforms, LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. You can find all my links at brianbeers.com. Please just share the podcast with anyone who you think might enjoy it. And until next time, remember to take the actions others won't, to live the life that others don't.